Hello, welcome to the April 2024 Composing Competition live stream. This is our 9th live stream and the 2-year anniversary of the competitions, which is crazy that we've done 9 of these already. If you don't know what this is and you just stumbled on this on the internet somehow, what we do is we put out a call to the composing community and ask them to write some original instrumental music. So we always have a prompt. This time around, it was this photo of Mont Saint-Michel from, where is that? Where is that in France? It's in France, right? Where exactly it is. But anyway, this was our prompt image, and everybody was asked to write a 90-second piece, up to 90-second piece of music inspired by this artwork. We had hundreds of submissions, and then we trimmed that list down to 12 to present to the judges today, which we'll listen to, give feedback on, and also rank on slightly different categories this time. Technique, impression, and story. So I'll start with impression. Whether other competitions like to acknowledge it or not, just there's this kind of subjective element where you're like, oh, I really like this, or like, I'm not feeling it. And like I said, some competitions pretend that's not there, but it's always there. So that's the impression category. It's just like, does it speak to your soul? Do you really like it? Do you want to hear it again? Like, how does it make you feel? Technique is a little more like, you know, I didn't really dig it, but they have craft. Or maybe I dig it and they have craft. But really, like, I'm going to acknowledge this is a really well-written piece, well-orchestrated, maybe strong harmony or counterpoint or whatever. And then story has kind of two sides to it. Does the piece feel like it kind of tells a story on its own? We can kind of imagine some sort of scenario going on, and does it kind of fit the story that we're getting when we look at the prompt image? So those are our 3 categories. It's a slight twist, it's new, we'll see how it goes. Maybe we'll go back to the old way next time. We do have some prizes. So from Lute Audio, who's been with us from the start, 3rd place will get the Kinema Percussion, 2nd place gets the Sinister Textures Bundle, and 1st place gets the Dark City 1 and 2. So thank you, Glenn, from Lute Audio. From Bliss, we have Shimmer to 3rd place, the Bliss Arpeggiator to 2nd, and the Bliss Megalit and all the other preset packs I just mentioned to 1st. And Bliss is spelled B-L-E-A-S-S. And Vianney from Bliss has also given me a code that I can give to my favorite people, and if you're watching this live stream, you're one of my favorite people, you can have 20% off on any Bliss plugin at bliss.com/shop till May 31st. First 100 people to use that can get the 20% off. So thank you, Vianney. And also from East West, who is the first time we have them involved, we have Hollywood Strings 2 to 1st place, which I think just came out. Is that right? I feel like Chris would know. That's brand new, right?
It's brand new. It just came out a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Just came out a couple weeks ago. So thank you, Jennifer from East West. We appreciate your involvement. Okay, and finally we have our judges. So you guys are in alphabetical order already, so we'll just do it that way, or by last name anyway. So we have Gavin Leeper, first of all. Gavin Leeper is a composer and music educator. His YouTube channel explores the music of Japanese anime and video games through the lenses of jazz harmony and classical orchestration. He was previously a band leader for jazz and math rock projects, studied economics at Stanford, and worked as a data scientist at Spotify Japan before taking the plunge on a music career. Today he's composing music for video games like Secret of Moonlight and Roto Magnet, while also teaching students from around the world. And you also have a new album coming, is that right?
Yeah, I'm working on an EP of orchestrations, kind of orchestral remixes of famous math rock tunes. I know, dozens of people asked for that.
All 14 of them will
all 14 of them
check it out.
Are going to love it.
Yeah,
exactly.
So, yeah, Kevin, as always, yoroshiku onegaishimasu. All right, next we have Christopher Siu. Christopher Siu is a composer, orchestrator, and fellow educator. He's worked with artists including Tina Guo, Anne Catherine Dern, David Wise, Stephen Mellon, and Rumi Official. A few of his credits include music and orchestration for Hallmark's romantic comedy Her Pen Pal, as well as original music and arrangements for the Dark Dice series, which won awards including Best Original Score at the 2022 Signal Awards. Chris has an on-demand workshop taking you through the entire composing and orchestration process from start to finish. If you want to check it out, visit Christopher Siu, that's, as you can see, siu.com/framework. Chris, thanks for joining us, as always.
A pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And our special guest this time around is Wade Smith.
Woo.
Wade Smith is a self-taught composer and a hybrid orchestral connoisseur. He takes a lot of inspiration from Thomas Bergerson and Jeremy Soule in his work and applies those influences and many more to his music. His career consists of writing for short films and video game demos. And some of you may know that his greatest claim to fame is the winner of the very first composing competition back in April of 2022. So it's cool to have you on board. Welcome, Wade.
Crazy, it was 2 years ago, huh?
It's been crazy 2 years.
Yesterday.
I know.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Seriously.
Yeah, this will be fun.
Be blessed.
I'm ready to hear some music, I think, if you guys are.
Ready.
I also want to give a shout out to John and Celeste, who are behind the scenes. Without them, this wouldn't be happening. They've been helping so much, so thank you guys. And I think we're ready to hear some music. 12 tracks to get through today. I'll remind you to mute while we listen to the music. And then we'll go Gavin, Chris, Wade for the first one. All right, so first up we have Of Kings and Queens from Jeff Helkema. Gavin, how about you start us off?
Nice. Yeah, usually for the first one, I'm trying to normalize the scores a little bit so that there's room in case I get surprised later on. But I got sort of surprised by this one already, so I had to kind of adjust upward. Yeah, really. Like I definitely on the kind of impression. Like it felt resonant. A lot of the way, like that main theme, I'm remembering it, and I thought it was built up in a really nice way that like by the end we had the vocals doing it, yeah, I could definitely see the story going on of the of Her Majesty showing the protagonist around her mystical castle. So really liked that.
Yeah, awesome, Jeff. Great work. Yeah, this is one where I wasn't expecting minor, but I like that you did. It kind of lent a sort of darker tone to the piece to start things off, and I have to say I really liked the first section, like the build up to the main elements, and I thought I think it was a guitar you had like a strum pattern going on for the first half, and I think I personally would love to hear that guitar going on throughout most of the piece. I think you took it out in the chorus section, or where the main theme came in, and I personally would have loved to hear that just as an additional rhythmic component. I think it was really effective, so I kind of wanted to hear it almost the whole way through. The other thing was, I, like Evan said, I really like the main theme, and it's quite memorable as well. The only thing is that I wanted a little bit more voicing stuff in the mid range, I think, because the first time your theme came, it was basically the theme, and then you had like the low strings, I think, going on in the low end. But some of the middle voices were just a touch missing, for my opinion. So I wanted to hear a little bit more harmony there in the strings, and maybe a couple more counter melodies there, and then develop that even more in the repetition of that theme when it comes back. But all in all, I think you captured the vibe that you wanted really well, and it came through just as a really solid, cohesive piece. So congratulations.
So my initial thought when the piece kind of started, I really liked how you kind of filled like all of the, you know, empty spaces out. Like there wasn't any time to where it just kind of felt sustained and nothing else was really going on. Like it was just completely filled out. You paid attention to all like the details, and that's something I really appreciated. Is just constantly keeping the listener just, you know, constantly focused on something else. You know, it kind of not necessarily bounces around to where it's a bad thing, but it just keeps them more, you know, engaged, and it doesn't get necessarily bland. The one part I did feel like it kind of lasted a little too long was the main melody kind of section. It just felt kind of drawn out. You kind of, I feel like you kind of lost that, um, you know, fullness you kind of had in the intro. The other judges can completely disagree with me, but I did enjoy the main melody, and I did enjoy, you know, like the beginning, and I like kind of liked how you kind of went back to that at the end a little bit. But yeah, overall, great job.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Also, I want to mention this is happening live on my main channel, but I'll actually post the recording on the Composing Competitions channel, which is a separate channel. It's also where we post the announcements and the finalists and all most of the competition related stuff. So I think the URL is youtube.com/@composingcompetitions. You should be able to find it, or just search Ryan Leach Composing Competitions and you will find it. Ready for another one? We have Majestic Ascent from Thomas Booker Price.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thomas, you I don't know how, like, if you know this, but like E major is probably my favorite key ever. There's just so many beautiful pieces written in like when I was growing up in E major, so there's a bit of a bias there. But I just love just the friendly sort of nature opening, and I also like the use of that Mixolydian mode in there with those, you know, D major chords to spice things up a little bit. And then, you know, your middle section, you really just open up the floodgates. And I love the, you know, harmonic adventures you went through there. Really told a story. I gave high marks there for sure. Like really beautiful impression you left for me, and just the overall harmonic language you used showed true inventiveness. And at the very end, with your B7, I thought you were going to go back to an E major chord to end things off, but you decided to end it in D flat. And to me, that's another taste of just subverting expectations, right? Like taking us somewhere else. So I thought that was pretty cool. And yeah, orchestration was really beautiful. There was one moment, I think, when the big section built up, where it came in, that I lost the melody just a touch, and the mid range kind of fizzled out for me just a bit. But I think after that, I heard every element pretty clearly, and I think you paid special attention to everything you wanted to do. So yeah, really great piece. Good work.
Yeah, so I thought it was kind of that was really fun. Especially kind of like, kind of being in that key too. It almost reminded me of the entry I had 2 years ago, where it was in like the same key, and it ended off in sort of this like climactic like little like wall of sound, and it was just great, and I loved it. I agree with everything Chris said. Kind of lost me there a little bit with the melody, but overall it had a really great pace, progression, and I really enjoyed it. So good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with what's been said so far. I was particularly taking notes on some of the orchestration choices. Liked the trumpet flute doubling. There was once like a violin, cello, and octaves thing that I'm not sure if it's because it specifically appears in that piece, but there was a moment or two that reminded me of La Mer, like the Debussy piece. And that's like one of my favorite classical pieces. So yeah, quite liked a lot of those moments.
All right, thank you, Thomas. Go to the next one. I'm going to some people, I don't know if it's going to make a difference, but I'm going to try to close out the way I'm sharing the screen and share it again, and maybe we'll get stereo this time. It sometimes works that way, so let's see what happens. It might not make a difference, but I know some people watching are hearing mono, and it should be stereo, but all right. Next up, we have Herald of the Towering Isle from Christopher Cook. Start with Wade this time.
Cool. Well, I like right off the bat when the piece started, the flute really pulled me in. I'm like, oh, that sounds really cool. And I really liked how it kind of progressed that little like the intro, and it kind of developed the melody a bit. But I feel like the flute kind of lasted a little too long in terms of like diversity and just how overall everything is coming together. I did like it, it coming back at the end, just kind of wrapping things up. It had a nice start. nice ending. I feel like in the middle there, you could have, maybe had to develop a little faster in terms of, having something else other than the flute, take over the melody. And that's really my only criticism. Like everything else is great. I enjoyed like the last one, like the progression was great. Besides the flute, which is my thing. But other than that, yeah, solid entry.
All right.
Yeah, I really liked the woodwind writing. I think that was the main thing that sort of stuck with me. Like, wow, Christopher here really understands the woodwinds, and I wonder if they are a woodwind player themselves. Because it sounds to me like they got the lion's share of the attention on this piece, which I think is cool. I quite like that. Strings tend to kind of take that for a piece like this in my experience. So it was cool to hear so much emphasis on the woodwinds, and I think that really paid off. In terms of the melodic material, there were like moments that like you had me, and like my heart was in it, and I was if it had kept going in a certain direction, I would have been hooked. But then it would change direction a little bit, and I would lose the moment a little bit. I don't know how to improve on that, but you can know that for yourself. That maybe the thing to take from it is to think about have a more singular direction and a more predictable melody, because the twists and turns lost me a little bit.
Yeah, so this is another piece where I was just really listening throughout and not really criticizing. It was more just like listening and just enjoying. And throughout the piece, while I was listening, I was like, this is just really well produced and well written. And so I just really appreciated throughout how you kept the lush feeling, the emotive feeling of the score continuing. This piece really gave me a sense of almost underscore, like a really moving film sort of piece that's like accompanying a scene in a really cool way. Sort of on what Gavin said, you had melodic fragments that were really hooky, like that was really, really pretty, but I wanted that to go on further as well. And I felt like in some moments, maybe you chose to go with certain textures and, orchestration elements that helped the music flow, but I feel like the melody could have taken that role a little bit more as well. So if you had, a more continuous melody, maybe had a very defined B section melody as well, that would have just given it that backbone to really take it into that 10 out of 10 level. But production wise and orchestration wise, I can't really fault it, because it's just like the sort of style that I really enjoy. And I think you pulled it off really, really well. So great work.
Nice. Christopher's in the chat saying, definitely a symptom of spending too much time with the melody.
Oh,
yeah. That happens to all of us, I think. Just over listening, and yeah, it's hard. Like you said, I don't know how you fix that. Just go with your first instinct and then move on, I guess, is the way.
Look deep inside. Use the fourth. That's how.
All right. Thank you, Christopher. Next, we have The Arcane Academy from Tobias Gustafsson. Here we go.
That's pretty. I think Gavin's up.
That's me, right? I'm trying to be better about knowing when it's
I put your name on the first column on the spreadsheet if you're speaking on this one first, by the way.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I just did that. So.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I liked cool submission. I enjoyed there was a couple, I mean there were several kind of modal mixture moments. I really liked the Lydian moment at the beginning. I think also the choice of title helped me to imagine, you know, a different story associated with this castle. So I appreciated that, like that the title it indicated another unique, you know, more of a Hogwarts type of story to it, and that was really helpful for immersing me in the story that you were trying to tell. Yeah, those are the main two things I'd say.
Yeah, so this was a super cool piece as well. And let's see. Okay, yes, I think the first impression I got was that you have a really good grasp, Tobias, of tension and release, because I feel like I always talk about the 80-20 rule. You have a really solid foundation for your main musical material, and I would consider that the 80%. But then the modal mixture, the color chords you put in there, that's like the remaining 20% that you spice it up with and really make it interesting. And I felt like you struck that balance in a really nice way. So I think theoretically, in terms of the craft of writing, you have that pretty much nailed for the style that you're going for here. So that's really beautiful. My main critique is really just for the mix a little bit. I think there's one thing at the very beginning when the horn was playing, I kind of wanted to hear a breath in that melody, because I felt it went on just a little bit long, and I don't know if that would be entirely realistic for them to play that entire thing. Maybe you did have a breath and I missed it, but there was just somewhere in the middle I wanted to hear that breath. The other thing was when the strings came in, the violins, I felt that they were a few dB too loud. So I think they clogged up the mix just a tad. It pushed the absolute volume up a little bit too much for me. And then I think as the piece progressed, the overall volume just continued to grow. And so the dynamic difference between the very beginning and the very end, in terms of like from our perspective, hearing it as a listener, you'd have to turn the volume control up or down a couple of dB. So if that's what you were going for, then sure, fine. But I think in this type of thing where you want to hear all the details and just enjoy the piece, I might do a little bit of compression or at least volume automation on the second half just to bring it down a little bit so that we can hear the increase in orchestration and dynamics, but not necessarily need to adjust our volumes to compensate for that. But that would just be my little nitpick there.
Cool. Yeah, so I thought the writing was really great. The chord choices were, you know, really interesting to listen to. Like, obviously, it's taking me by surprise. It makes me think like, oh, the castle's just kind of like magical and kind of like whimsical. So it's just kind of cool to picture that kind of scene a little bit. Because I'm always a sucker for, you know, mixing notes and stuff. And I think Gavin and Chris really covered, you know, a lot of, you know, what's great about the piece and what's wrong with the piece. In terms of mixing, yeah, I do agree. It did get a little loud, and the quiet parts were a little too quiet. One could argue that, but overall, I did enjoy that you did take the time to put in the expression and the dynamics, and overall, I really enjoyed the writing. I really enjoyed the piece. So good job.
All right. Thank you, Tobias. Ready for some more music?
Yep.
Go with La Promenade from Léo Bidon.
So
see a lot of smiles.
yeah, it's so different, you know.
Jazz.
Great. Yeah. So cool. Yeah, Leo. So this one, I, I, I personally, it reminds me a lot of a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe track, called Paris Promenade. Very similar name too, and in the same key too. Similar instrumentation, but yeah, it just has this light, cheery vibe that I personally really enjoy. Again, really cool use of mono mixture and minor fourths and things like that to spice it up. And yeah, the live instruments makes such a difference. Like this sort of piece really needs live instrumentation to really make it special. And I think the live strings and guitar that Alex was talking about, like it really just lends a beautiful feeling to it. I wonder if the accordion was live or not. It felt a little choppier than the other stuff, but maybe that's just the nature of the playing, and that's just how it came across. But yeah, overall, I think the mix is great. The production sounds very, very clean, very solid as well. And yeah, just really enjoyed listening to it. I didn't really nitpick anything. I just sat back and listened, and it was just a really nice breath of fresh air.
Yeah. Like, I mean, immediately when I started listening to it, I'm like, wow, it's already sounding really good. Mix is great. Already kind of like I've liked the writing initially, and then when that, the accordion kicked in, it just put a smile on all our faces, and it was like, whoa, this is actually really like different and really fun, and it was a really nice, fresh take on the whole picture, and I really, it's just I really don't have any critiques at all. It was just fun to listen to, and yeah, great job. Seriously, I don't have anything other than excellent work, man.
Yeah, agreed. I think this, as Ryan was saying, like it, a lot of us were smiling. I liked it, because with my background of this type of stuff is that I can, if it sounds more like, this one did. I think Chris identified it really well. It had more of this Nintendo type of sound, and was drawing more on a jazz type of chord-based framework for how it was composed. And as someone with a jazz background, like I was right there with you. I was seeing the chord chart as I was seeing the lead sheet, and that made it feel like a real tune, from like a Mario game or like Ratatouille 3 or something like that. I also really enjoyed, because it's a smaller ensemble, and I enjoyed it being more of that kind of close mic'd sound that we could hear so many details, as opposed to like, I think we can go a lot for this like epic sounds, which is really like you're only hearing the average of 40 violinists versus like here's one with all of the interesting bits and bops that come with just one. So really creative submission. I really enjoyed it.
I have to ask, what strings were those if they were programmed?
I was gonna ask for you, but yeah.
Thank you.
You're like, what?
I want to know now.
The only library I could suspect is probably like CSSS.
I would think so, but it's possible. Maybe it's mixed in a brighter way than I'm used to. Yeah.
We're on a.
I'm curious to know.
There's a little latency, so it might take a moment for the message to get to the chat, but
yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised if it's CSSS. But...
We'll give him a second. Maybe he won't reveal his secrets.
His own private library. No one
No
one can know about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wouldn't you like to? Well, give me your credit card. And all right. Maybe we'll find out. We'll update everyone if we do find out. But otherwise, we'll go to the next one. We have Spring Arrival by Gary Hirsch. Oh, he did just respond. Sorry, Gary. CSSS with a lot of processing. So Cinematic Studio Solo Strings.
Yeah, the processing was great, man. I'm curious to know what you did.
All right. Now we'll do Spring Arrival from Gary Hirsch. We got some good strings going on today, huh?
Yeah,
Let's see,
yeah.
who's
The violin
first?
was great. I guess it's my turn, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. First, the whisper sustains or whatever you want to call them. Kind of starting off the piece was very, nicely like elegant, and I think is very relevant to the piece and just having that. I think it was maybe Bohemian violin, something like that. And it sounded great. It mixed really nicely, and it sounded like after that melody with the violin, I think what was it, an English horn and flute taking over the melody or something like that? And I thought that was a really, interesting choice, and I thought it worked really, really well. And right when I thought it was like hit its climax, it just went one step higher, and it was just like, wow, this is really nice to listen to. I just kind of like took a step back and just like, this is great. I really enjoyed really like the melody. The melody was like a really strong hook. You didn't really lose me at any point, and yeah, good job.
Gary, you know your borrow chords, man. There were a lot of, as a harmony geek, there were a lot of like, ooh, oh, nice, he did that thing. It's hard for me without the score, but it sounded like there was even maybe like a tritone substitution moment or two. The writing reminded me a little bit of Yupeng Chen's writing for Genshin Impact, actually. Maybe that's why I get it. Like, oh, it's East Asian leaning. But yeah, no, I thought it was really well done. And the ending, especially, I thought was a really, really cool moment. That was a nice way to end with. It was like I forget exactly what it was, but like big borrow chord from like, whoa, dark place, and then we end it in a very kind of delicate way right after that. That was.
Did we just lose him?
Maybe.
Oh no.
Your last thought got cut off, Gavin. Last sentence.
I was talking about the ending.
Oh, okay.
Did you guys hear it?
We heard a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Borrowed chord and then something.
Borrowed chord and then delicate ending. Thought that worked well.
Okay.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me the ending also stick out as well. And both Wade and Gavin kind of said most of the stuff I was thinking about. I think like this image specifically with all the colors and just the depth of the image, there's so many ways to go with it. And I think the pink tinge in the clouds is what kind of gives us this rosy feeling for a lot of the submissions. And I kind of feel that a lot in these past couple. So that helps a lot, I think. And for me, the impressions are quite high so far. As these guys said, like the theoretical stuff is all very effective, and the colors don't feel too overstated. Like you're not doing too much of it where it feels almost I don't know the right word for it, but it
like
feels
it's still a good tune.
Yes.
Yeah.
It does. It just it feels like it's enough, but not overwhelming. So yeah, great theme. And I think my only little nitpick would just be some of the elements in the mix feel a bit detached from one another. I kind of want it to gel a little bit more overall. So maybe that's just some slight volume balance tweaks. Maybe that's just more of a reverb thing as well. But overall, everything condensed into a nice feeling piece of music that I can sit back and enjoy. So really, really cool.
All right. Thank you, Gary. We're halfway through. We have six more to listen to. Next we have Fortress of the Spring from Frank Batry.
Nice. I really liked the playful writing in it. Gave me a little bit of a feeling like some of the writing from the Ori games. That was sort of the universe in which this was situated. Like I was imagining the art, redrawn in that style, and that really fit well. You also managed to showcase most of my favorite instruments, like bass clarinet had a moment, French horn had a moment. Just missing the bassoon, man. That's the one one thing that could have been
So you to
fun
play
to
it.
have.
That's why,
Yeah, up to me. You should have called me up. Put me in, coach. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, quite liked the writing. And yeah, I liked also that there was even in these 90 seconds, just a thing to say, and like I'd be stoked to have written any of these submissions, honestly. Like it's fun to judge these things, but man, if all three of us were submitting to all 9 of these previous, like we'd had 9 more tunes for our portfolio, you know what I mean? And I'd be stoked to have any one of these submissions as like, yeah, this is in my portfolio, this is my reel. So I think anyone who's made it this far should definitely just be proud of themselves. Yeah,
I
really
also
like.
add, Franck has been a finalist. I think this is maybe the 5th time. So very consistent, high quality work as well. Really, always doing a really nice stuff.
That's amazing. Yeah, like the consistency is almost more important. Like you can get lightning in a bottle once, but a thing that I think Ryan and I both admire about Yasunori Nishiki, the writer, the composer for the Octopath Traveler games, is that he can write 90 tunes. They're all maybe A-, B+, but it's like 90, like again solid, right? So I think that even that, being a finalist 5 times is like a big achievement. But none of that is, I'm just wanting to say that at some point while we're here today. None of that is to degrade the quality of this specific submission either. What I was going to say to top that off was that I was surprised by the number of kind of dynamic positions, or like how quiet and how loud it could get in the 90 seconds you were allocated as well. So great use of the time.
Yes, and Eric was just saying ear candy store. Yeah, that's one thing I wanted to mention, was just there's so much going on, and the intricacy in the arrangement is clearly evident. You clearly love the woodwinds as well, so very cool. Yeah, I guess the whole piece had a charm to it, and it almost had a sense of restraint and control to it, which I do admire about that. Like a lot of us, sometimes we want to go guns blazing, right? Like we'll set up something at the very beginning, but then we'll head into the big section and leave nothing at the very end. This piece I actually felt maybe had a touch of the other side, where I felt like you had a really beautiful opening theme, and then when you got into the larger sections in the middle, you use the brass, the chord changes. It really emphasized that the energy is being lifted here, but I actually wanted a little bit more in terms of the orchestration. Maybe that's higher dynamic layers in the brass, maybe more support in the high strings, maybe some more percussion, something to really just drive the point home that yes, we are going a little bit further and we do want to reach that high energy. So I think the beginning and the end were really effective, but I just wanted a tad more energy and fullness, I guess, and push in the middle sections with the orchestration. But aside from that, the actual detail in the orchestration you've written here is spectacular. So congratulations.
Okay. So yeah, I think this is also another phenomenal piece in terms of the orchestration and the writing and the choices that you made. I could tell that, in a lot of these submissions that woodwinds are very, very, popular when it comes to, I guess, springtime or cheerfulness and all that. And I think it fits perfectly. And I like to kind of say that you don't have to be good at production in order to have a good mix. A lot of times you need to have, more so good orchestration first in order to have a good mix. And if you have good orchestration, good writing, typically that mix will kind of, fit into place. So I think everything fit well. Yes, I do think that the mix could have been a little bit better, but I think the orchestration really helped that mix in the long run. I did like, all the woodwind runs, all the, ear candy that was said previously. And yeah, I think it was really, really fun, really catchy, and overall good entry.
All right. Thank you, Frank. And we'll go to The Enchanted Meadow from Monica.
Wow. This is pretty different in a really cool way. Like some of the other submissions had, a lot of the ear candy and the whimsical nature, but this one I think fully leaned into that. And it really just helped us really envision sort of that magic happening in the image. And if this was put to a moving film, right, or a scene, you could definitely sort of imagine what sort of things would be happening on screen. The only question I had, Monica, is that this piece is in the middle or like in between two pitches. Like it's a half, what is it? Half step? No, it's a quarter tone between two pitches. And I'm just curious, was that intentional? Because I couldn't decide whether it was in one key or the one, like, the semitone below. So that was distracting me the whole way through, but that doesn't detract from the fact that your piece was beautiful. But it almost, I don't know, I guess the ambiguous nature of the key almost lends a sense of mystery to it too, and it kind of makes it feel even more magical. So I don't know if that's just me, but that's pretty something I just wanted to ask about, if that was intentional or not. But otherwise, the production, mix, orchestration, everything was very solid, as well as the other ones were as well. So great work.
Yeah, the beginning of the piece, I just felt like I was on like a magical ride where like I was like on that like broomstick from Harry Potter, and I was like swooping in, especially with like the Mark tree and all of the melodic instruments and stuff. It's just really it was great to listen to. I felt some of the EQ of some of the strings were a bit harsh, at least to my ears. I feel like you could have, I guess, cut those back a little bit. But in terms of everything else, I thought the writing was great. And another thing, from what Chris said, to kind of add on to that, in at least the score I'm used to, like the Skyrim OST, I know that Jeremy Soule actually kept everything a little sharper, to keep that kind of like cool you know, I guess I don't know if it's like a Nordic style, but I just thought like some people do that technique, and I think it's really unique, and it really, you know, makes you like, oh, that's different, you know. Like the artist is doing something quirky, and I like it. Overall, like I said, great piece, and yeah, keep up the good work.
Chris, I am very impressed that you can hear that.
That was too.
I was thinking about chiming in like hashtag perfect pitch problems.
Oh
Like,
my god, it's
I can't tell which one it is.
well, no. So the thing is, like when the whole track is slightly up or down, it's totally fine because everything is in tune with itself, right?
Right.
But it's just like, yeah, anyway.
So it doesn't make you like uncomfortable. It's just kind of
the only uncomfortable thing is just like, I don't know if it's supposed to be this or this. That's
okay.
all. If it was intentional, then
like
props, you know. I just
right.
Curious, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's A432, man. It's like the chakras, man. You don't know about that? No, I'm kidding.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, but right, like you're saying, it's like it's ambiguous, like whether it's like G, like a half sharp or a half flat. Like, did you tune down? Oh no, did I get lost again? Did you tune down or did you tune up? Right, is kind of because you sort of don't know like which one should I feel. This is brighter than normal, or this is darker than normal, right? So maybe it could have been cool, because I know this is actually something that Jacob Collier has done in a couple of his previous works, that he'll start a tune, he'll like slowly tune the tune up in order to make it brighter. So doing something like that could have answered your question a little bit, and for the rest of us, like, oh, there might be, you know, a subconscious sense of like, oh, the it's getting even brighter over time. I'm not exactly sure why, but yeah, then it gets to, okay, are you doing that externally with just like an automated, you know, like somewhere a sense knob is tuning up on the whole thing, or, you know, I mean, otherwise that gets to be pretty difficult to execute with all of your software instruments and stuff. So anyway, that's an interesting thought for sure. But I think I also agree with what's been shared about the track. I think it's a great submission.
All right, thank you, Monica. Next we have Princess on Duty from Jan-Louis Jintz. Okay, I think Wade's taking us this time.
Okay. So initially I thought the intro and having the percussion first and then just going into like the whimsical like woodwind section, I thought was a bit abrupt, and I think it might have would have sounded better if you didn't have the percussion right off the bat like that. I thought it was a little confusing and it didn't really flow nicely at that part. but when the woodwinds kicked in, it was really great. Another great use of, great woodwind writing and great, chord choices. And I felt like you could have gone bigger, which I know that 90 seconds you can only do so much, but I felt like you were kind of intentionally kind of keeping it on like one level and then bringing it down to like just the piano and then kind of building it up, but kind of only hitting a certain point. I felt like you could have gone a little bit bigger. And I feel like that would have really, brought that piece more to life. But what you did present was really great. Like I said, great writing. I enjoyed all the choices you made. Um, I don't know what kind of piano that was. Um, I thought it was a really unique sound, which really brought, that piece, its uniqueness. Which is probably why it's a finalist. Not because of the piano stuff, but just because of the overall writing, the choices and everything. So overall, great job.
I felt like for me there were a lot of the individual ideas were quite good, and I enjoyed, especially there's kind of a moment of like a bummer man moment, or like a something bad happened or something dark happened, and I thought that was well executed, but reaching the end, I am overall left with a sense of like those were good ideas. I didn't necessarily have a sense of the flow of them coming together. And I think that's something for you to think about in your writing a little bit, because that's transitions, right? That I think could have helped to make this a little bit more cohesive. But like I said, the individual, like the train cars themselves were quite good. So nice job with the material.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off of that, I feel like the piece had it definitely had a charm to it, and I really enjoyed just the sense of ideas that you presented here. And I guess for me, a lot of the nitpicks are just due to the arrangement itself a little bit. I feel like it could do with an extra layer of finesse, just a little bit more transition stuff, like maybe Gavin mentioned, a little bit more ear candy to lead us from one idea to another. The woodwind melodies at the very beginning, there were a couple spots where I feel some of the notes should have been shorter notes, shorter articulations, more staccato stuff instead of legato lines. Just because of the nature of it, it's more musical and kind of fun. So I think it would have done well with some shorter notes on some of those shorter notes, shorter articulations on some of the shorter notes as well. And then, yeah, I think the volume balances on some of the instruments were a tad off. Like some strings were too loud, some other parts were a bit too quiet. And this is one of those mixes I feel like could have been a tiny bit more mono. Like the stereo image is definitely there. You have a lot of elements all over the place, but I kind of want to hear it a bit more gelled together, a tiny bit more up the center, because that would make it feel a bit more cohesive to me as well. So just, yeah, overall, I think the ideas are great. Like the main ideas are all there. I think it's just tweaking the orchestration a little bit, adding a touch more interest, and then just tweaking the balances and the panning very, very slightly. And you've got a winner. So good stuff.
So interesting thing about the mix and the piano, apparently this was Muse sounds for the whole thing.
Muse sounds interesting. Okay, well, there we go.
Which is pretty impressive, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
It sounds like
knowing
that.
Yeah.
Why are we paying for all this stuff, guys?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Okay. Next we have I Call It Home. Oh, I want to actually comment. I thought that was another good example of title as this extra kind of outside element, this extra dimension, because the whole time with that track I was thinking of a princess, right? And kind of imagining them maybe going about the castle doing their princess duties or whatever. So title really can maybe push, you can help people kind of feel things in a certain way, I guess, with the right words. So the next one we have is I Call It Home from Jacob Shea.
Sorry, Ryan, I don't
I'm
think
not hearing anything.
we're hearing anything.
Yeah, I was waiting for it. I'm like, where is it?
It's like you're vibing out and enjoying.
I'm hearing it because I didn't share it on the stream. Hang on.
Okay.
I gotta stop it. That's funny. You could see me being like,
Yeah.
All right, I have to actually put it on the stream for you to hear it.
Oh, there we go.
Let's try that again.
Cool.
Sorry, Jacob. All right, here we have I Call It Home, Jacob Shea.
Nice job, Jacob. With this one, I felt that I felt a kindred spirit, and that the musical ideas are more of the or how would I put it? The musical ideas are outpacing the quality of the production. So to me, the writing is not what would need any improvement. Like I really liked, anything that's in 12/8 gets extra points from me. It's just like such a nice, different feeling, right? But I thought that what could help this kind of take this one over the edge would be a little more thought on, I guess it felt in terms of how the mock-up translated, it felt smaller than the writing meant for it to be. As in everyone's holding back on their instruments a little bit. Like it didn't sound like a confident performance, essentially. So, I'm not sure exactly, that's kind of broad feedback to take. But I would spend more time working on the mock-up skills, and I don't think that you need more time in the writing department necessarily, because the notes themselves are really great.
Yeah, I think I can fill in the hole a little bit there. So I agree that, yeah, the musical ideas were definitely able to stand on their own. How much does production value sway how well your submission does? I guess it culminates to these three factors in a way, right? Because if the mockup itself isn't really translating well, then it affects our impression, it affects some other things as well, and potentially even the story if we can't focus on it as much. But I'm not saying this one did to that effect, but just as a general.
Can I comment on that question as well? So the question in the chat was, how much does production value sway how well your submission does? And we actually used to have production as its own judging category, and this is the first time without it. So the intent is to give it a little less sway. However, the reason it's always been there is that what we hear is what it is, right? So if it's a really strong, beautiful sound, it's strong and beautiful, right? Like that's just part of it. So, I hate that that's reality, but it is that, that it's a factor. Even when it's not its own category, it still is how we kind of receive what we get. And the metaphor I often use is imagine a monologue given by just like some rando versus an Academy Award winning actor. Like which one is gonna, it could be the exact same words, but which one are you probably going to be more roused by? Like Patrick Stewart is probably going to do a better job than the guy working at Wawa down the street. So it's that kind of thing a little bit. But we try not to make it a major part, but it's inevitable that it's there, I guess.
Right.
Sorry. Back to
programming. Like, the fact that these tracks are all finalists, that shows that the production to some degree did its job. So that's great. But yeah, I think the big thing production wise is just that sometimes there feels like there are mismatches between what's being presented and what could be filling in those holes along with that presentation of the main instrumentation. So for example, if you have like a string ensemble, like let's say a violin section playing a melody and it's super thick, you wouldn't expect the instrumentation to be super sparse, because that just like the violins will give you that thick richness. So you would expect that to be supported with other rich elements to give you that consistency across the board. So I felt like while a lot of melodic elements, they were carrying the idea across really nicely, some of the mid-range and low end just felt a bit empty. So maybe that's where some of the impact was kind of lost. You didn't have as much of that support. I did hear some counter lines and stuff in the middle there as well. But when you have those longer melodic lines, it would be a good idea to probably have some string sustains in the middle as well, building up those chords with good voice leading to give you that sense of support. And it doesn't distract us. It doesn't feel like a gap, right? You want us to continue along the journey with you and let that melody take us from start to finish, instead of they're feeling like, oh, there's this melody that's super strong, but then there kind of feels like there's a drop underneath of some gaps. So I think that's kind of the big thing where I would fill in some of those holes. But yeah, and balance wise, a couple elements were also too loud, some were too quiet. So probably take another look at that. But again, as Gavin said, writing wise, it was very solid. So great work.
Okay. I kind of want to also talk about, the minimal kind of, instrumentation, orchestration. I kind of liked how everything was kind of stripped back in the beginning, and especially with the track being called, called Home. I personally always associate home kind of being like, the clarinet kind of sound, just kind of like it's cool, calm, and it was just that's all you really needed. Just despite like I don't know, like one or two background elements, and I thought it was perfect. And then it almost sounded like you're gonna grow with strings, and then you also introduced choir. I'm like, okay, like it's kind of abrupt, but it works. It catches me by surprise, but in a good way. And then you just kind of go back down a little bit, and you just kind of do the same thing, but that you did with the clarinet, but you did it with strings. And I just felt like you could have just kept that momentum from prior and kept that going. It only sounded like to me, at least first listen, that you only had the choir in like the one bit, and then like they never showed up again. So I thought you could have done something with choir, maybe like throughout the piece after you introduced them. And I felt like that's where it kind of lacked, but I did like the minimalistic kind of start. And yeah, that's basically what I'm trying to get at. Like, you don't need, vast amounts of orchestration knowledge to make a good message, clear. And if you're trying to evoke something to an image, sometimes just a clarinet or some background elements is really all you need, at least at first. Like, you don't need constant orchestration or John Williams-esque, orchestration or writing, throughout the entire piece in order for it to, work, So yeah, that's my feedback. Good job.
All right. Well, thank you, Jacob. Next up, we have another Jacob Everts with The Grand Castle, and I'll put it on screen before I hit play this time.
Lovely. Yeah, so I personally feel the composition is really strong. I like all the core ideas, and I don't really think there's anything I would add or take away from the writing. I think the instrumentation is also quite solid as well. I think I only have two tiny mock-up related nitpicks. The first one being that I want the solo horn closer up. And I felt it got lost a little bit in the mid-range in the mix there. So when you feature that solo horn, I'd rather hear it a little bit closer. The Cinebrass solo horn is a really good one. And the other thing was near the end, you had that ensemble string section come in, whatever. I think it started just a tad loud and a little bit strong. So I would taper that at the very beginning, let it grow into the phrase a little bit more, because it kind of comes from a quieter section just before it. So we don't want to be suddenly startled with the entry of that theme. Yeah, I'd be curious to know the libraries too. Speaking of which, well, I guess we'll talk about that. If indeed that was MuseScore, that's pretty impressive, but we'll see.
I guess it's my turn.
That's Wade.
Wade?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it did sound like MuseScore to me. And I don't know how flexible it is in terms of production. Which, you know, if that's the best you could do with the MuseScore and like production wise, I thought you did, you know, phenomenally. The writing was great, the pacing was just right. Didn't really feel rushed at all. Like when you went down like to like the slower sections, you didn't really, you know, take away too much. You didn't really add too much. Everything just flowed nicely. I think overall, you know, it was a really, really great entry, and it was really, really enjoyable to listen to as well. So good job.
Jacob's other entries were MuseScore, I'm being told in the background. So this one probably was too, I guess.
Nice. Yeah, I think Chris and Wade covered a lot of what I wanted to say, but great job, Jacob.
So, unrelated question from the chat. Aditya asked, would it be helpful if you could highlight how much time it should ideally take to complete writing the 90-second track? Sometimes writing too fast or overwriting might become a problem. Maybe I'll start with Wade, since you actually wrote a competition track under 90 seconds, if you remember how much time you spent. If not, that's okay, but...
I think it's really hard to answer because it really depends on, you know, per person. For me, writing wise, I think when I wrote Castle Thing, I think it only took me like 3 days, but it took me like another week or two to like really go through and like, does this idea actually work? And do I want to change anything in the mix? Or, you know, that's when if you ever watch, you know, I guess like the little interview video, I went to other people, be like, hey, how does this sound? Like individual people, and be like, what would you change? Not necessarily saying that they're right, but it depends on how you feel as well about their feedback. And really taking the time and listening and getting fresh ears helps. But I think really just spend as much time as you want. Don't feel like you're gonna overdo it. Just write however much you want to write first, and then, you know, take the time, strip it back, feel out what ideas work, and just try. I think the huge goal is trying to get the progression right, and each transition, you know, smooth, and having proper intro and outro without having, you know, a loop, you know. So yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I can add to that. So I think for most of my pieces, they're like 1.5 minutes. I think in terms of like total combined hours, it's usually between 10 and 20. So the writing process will usually take not too long, maybe you know, a couple hours, if that. But a lot of the time comes down to the actual orchestration and MIDI production and making sure the balances are right. Like all of that stuff is where the piece really comes to life through the arrangement, and that's really powerful. So I would say personally between 10 to 20 combined total hours working on the piece is pretty normal for me personally. And if that means it's spread out over the course of a month, like you work on it an hour or so, you know, a day here or there, whatever, or you do it all within a couple days, then that's totally up to you. But yeah, I think for a 1.5 to 3 minute piece, it's pretty standard to spend like a good chunk of hours on it, but nothing too drastic. Obviously, you want to get it out there at some point.
Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, Ryan, maybe we could put that comment up for a second, just so everyone can read it verbatim. It's oh, no problem, all good. Yeah, because I like this kind of the I think the concern in the background is a really valid one, like writing too fast versus overwriting. Right, sometimes spending too much time on something can certainly be hurtful. One thing I like to do in general when I'm doing something like this is that I'll try, if I can, I'll try to, you know, use a timer, put 2 hours on the clock, and then put pencils down and see where you are. And if you continue doing that and you're comparing over time, and you're finding that like the improvements are getting really small, then maybe something like that, where you pick your head up every once in a while, could help you.
Oh no,
we lost him again.
Yeah,
That's right, when we had
the golden nugget.
the golden nugget, the wisdom.
Oh,
No,
There you go. He's back.
You said it would help you. And then we lost it.
So I talked about like picking your head up every couple hours to, yeah. It would help you to avoid some of that overwriting danger.
Yeah, I found doing like little composition challenges, like hour long, give yourself like a rule or something and just be like, how much can you write in an hour? You just having this prompt or this rule, and then you just go for it. It gives you no time to really linger or think. The more you do it, the more you just want to write and not worry about, production or mixing or, anything. You just worry about writing. You stick with an idea and you just keep going. If you don't like it, then too bad. You just have to keep writing, and then you can go back. Obviously, if it's the competition, you can go back, or you can write multiple ones and pick out like the best one. It really depends on your workflow.
I would say never talk about how long does it take to write on Twitter, because everyone has an opinion and gets real mad. I mean, it is Twitter, but I think part of the idea is that, unfortunately, the real answer to your question is it depends on everything. It depends on you, your experience. It will probably take someone in high school a lot longer than it will take any of us to write the same track, just because I know where all the buttons are and I know which chords I tend to lean towards and just certain things, sometimes in a negative way, certain habits, but generally I can write much quicker today than I could even a couple years ago. So that has nothing to do with if that's the right amount of time and just the circumstances, I think. So, okay, we have one more track. Let's hear
Drum roll.
Cricket's Journey from Piotr Pivko.
Okay. So initially it was a really good introduction. I felt like, you know, it really led me into the piece very, very well. But I feel like you had a lot of good ideas, but some of them were executed brilliantly, and I feel like if some of them you could have probably expanded on or filled out a little bit more. Because some parts just sounded, you know, nice and full, and some other parts it just sounded like you could have added, like, you know, more. You could have made it sound more full, something like that. Like when the Road Up 2, it sounded like fire came in. Um, it sounded great. Everything was just, it was nice. I could just sit back and relax and listen to it. Some other parts, I'm just like, you could give me maybe a little bit more. And that would have been, I think it was the part before that mainly. And it's another thing where, you know, you kind of introduced that Bulgarian choir, and then you didn't really bring it back. And I feel like, you know, if you added that later on, if not in the background, maybe in front or something, it would have made more sense, you know, in terms of flow. But yeah, other than that, you know, like I said, good ideas. Overall, good submission. I enjoyed it, and yeah, good job.
Yeah, solid ideas. I think, you know, I think similar to a comment that Chris had on an earlier piece, there were some moments where it felt like there's a melody and there's a bass line, but the middle is not necessarily there. So whether that be counter lines or sustains, or maybe even something that's kind of in between, right? Like an accompaniment texture that's doing a, you know, eighth note pulse or a chugga or whatever it is, right? Some extra material in that mid range, I think, could help really kind of boost this piece, because if imagining the piano sketch, it's a strong piano sketch, right? So that's where I would look to improve what is already a really solid submission.
Yeah, the only problem with having a great melody is that all the attention goes to the melody. And if it's not produced really, really well, then its problems start becoming evident. And this, honestly, it wasn't even that big of a deal in terms of what I'm hearing. But I just to nitpick a little bit, because I was listening so much to the melody, I feel like I wanted a tad more articulation variety in terms of the tinkling theme at the beginning and the end. Because your melody is so hooky and it has a lot of similar valued notes, ding, 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 and you're using sort of this short, light staccato articulation for almost all of those notes. And I feel like some of them you could use a tad longer of a short to really give us that bit of variety. Because I think that's also one thing that makes something sound like a mock-up is if we use too much of the same articulation for a melodic line. And I heard moments where you combined lots of those shorts with legato, you know, the legato melody in other instruments. And that can kind of work, but that also kind of sounds like a sample as well, because then you're kind of choosing legato for one instrument, shorts for another. So it feels like neither one of them is committed to one approach or the other. You kind of have both of them. And so what I would say is maybe take some of those super short notes and extend them slightly, choose a slightly longer short sample that makes, like, fills in some of the spaces rhythmically when you have longer valued notes in the actual theme itself. So that would be my main thing there. But yeah, I think overall the musical themes are solid and the chord choices are nicely chosen as usual. But yeah, it's really just that little thing that can take that mock-up and just polish it up that final 5%. So yeah, good stuff to finish. You are muted.
You're muted.
Can you hear us, Ryan? You're muted. Hello?
Oh, all right. There we go. maybe I want to be muted. All right. Are we ready to reveal the top prizes? I want to make it a note that, like, I feel like I don't have to make, but I'll make anyway, that, you know, the point is not this track is better than that track and this other one, whatever, you know, we're just trying to have some fun. And I think we could do a live stream where we listen to 12 tracks and then say goodbye, but it makes it a little more fun to kind of rank like, this one was our favorite. You know, that's all this is meant to be. We're not trying to hurt anybody or, you know, it's art and we get that. Yes. Enjoy it. I get criticism sometimes, like competitions or, you know, whatever. So just have some fun. Okay, so thank you again to Bliss, Loot Audio, and East West for the prizes. There was actually quite a spread in the scores this time. Sometimes all the scores are just like sitting right on top of each other and it's like tiebreakers and all that, but we had a little bit of a spread. So first, the honorary categories. The highest score overall for technique was Gary Hirsch with Spring Arrival. Good job for that. The highest overall individual score just for impression was La Promenade by Leo Billon. I'm sorry, I don't know quite how to pronounce that, but my American way, Billon. How about that? And then and then for story, the overall just the honorary mention for the high score in story was The Grand Castle from Jacob Everett. So nice job to you guys. Now, maybe not too surprisingly, we'll also reveal the top 3 winners. So in third place, we have The Grand Castle from Jacob Everett.
Yay.
Bravo, Jacob. In second place, we have Spring Arrival from Gary Hirsch. Good job, Gary. And the winner of our 2-year anniversary April 2024 composing competition is La Promenade from Leo Billon. So congratulations. I will have all you guys in touch with the various companies awarding prizes. I'll remind everyone we do these every 3 months. They come up fast, so the next one will be composing over the month of July with a live stream in August. So check out the Composing Competitions channel. Again, just search on YouTube, Ryan Leach Composing Competitions, and you'll find it. I think that sums it up. I'll take any closing remarks from judges if you have it, and then we'll listen to that winning track one more time.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
I mean, I'll just say like this. I think the common theme across all these competitions so far is that as more submissions come in and everyone's hearing what everyone else is doing, the production quality and the writing is just continue to rise, and it just makes our job harder, but it also makes it more enjoyable at the same time. So cool.
Yeah, agreed for sure.
It's fun.
I think people are getting better at knowing what we like, you know, because they're just kind of pushing more and more towards a certain Nintendo / Disney / Japanese, you know, all those different aspects are kind of coming together in what we keep hearing. But
it's all about knowing the judges, right?
It is.
Well, yeah,
that's okay. All right. Well, shall we hear La Promenade one more time? All right.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
Of course. Thanks for being here. And enjoy the music. I'll switch over.
Good job, Leo.